Okay. All right, everybody. Here we are, episode 21. Wood, air, and metal.
Mezzle.
It's been a long day, a long weekend, fun Father's Day and week off and everything else. So now we're back with our guitars mostly on display. Of course, mine are all in their cases, outside of the electrics that you can't see off camera. Adam Keeler on this side, Tim Mirth on that side. And we're going to piggyback on the ideas that we were kind of going after and debating last time about vinyl and audio quality and everything else that can affect that on recordings because of Apple's, I don't want to say acquisition, but they are totally using the Dolby Atmos format.
They didn't buy them, did they?
I don't think they bought them. I hope not. I mean, no.
But like a partnership or something.
Yeah, something. Or it's clearly like, I think it's in Apple's domain that they have that Dolby Atmos. I don't know. I don't want to use the word rights. I haven't looked at it. But it's more of the sense of that got released, all that's up. Apple Music now has 24-bit, 192K streaming for all the files if it's available, all lossless. Personally, I think it's fan-stinking-tastic, at least in the lossless level, especially if you got a good set of headphones, which are completely worth investing in. You have no idea what you're missing if you haven't. It really is. I mean, I pulled Tim down the rabbit hole with this. I'm like, oh, you got to try these ones. And then after that, it's like, oh, wow, I didn't know that I couldn't hear those things. And it just keeps adding up. And the next thing you know, you're spending.
Yeah, there's a difference even between, because I've always had like the $100 headphones that were pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when you get, there's like another tier above that really starts to get into nicer headphones.
Yep. Well, I mean, I got over to the side. You can't really see it. I got my tube headphone amp because I decided to just give it a shot. It was like I bought these. The ones that I'm using now are my Hi-Fimans and the Planet Magnetics, which was like the big. I kept seeing tons of material. Oh, you got to try Planet Magnetic, and I'm like, oh, that barrier of entry is pretty high. But once I bought those Nobles, the in-ears, which I have right there, and heard the difference between my Sennheiser, like my cheaper Sennheisers. I don't remember the model number. Those are right here. These are HD518s, which were my daily driver before. So the Sennheiser HD518s, and then I got the Noble X from Drop, and that was significantly like, what the hell was I missing? And then I turned Tim onto them and a bunch of other people too, especially since they dropped so much in price.
Well, the Nobles are neat. Well, so I had these I actually got these right before the Nobles, like a couple months, which were the Shure 840s, which these sound actually really similar to the Nobles. Even like the sound stage is very similar. But what's nice is, I mean, the Nobles are in-ear, like, they're pretty soundproof. I updated the memory foam things like
you ended up getting
and
those?
that made a nice difference because sometimes you lose the bass on those, which kind of sucked.
Yeah.
But just for being an in-ear, you're like, whoa, I didn't know in-ears could sound this good.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway.
And then so you got your Grottos, and then
the Grottos, which sound amazing.
And one of the guys, I read another article, which I'll touch on while we're talking. Just about the Dolby, and he was like, oh yeah, so I decided to just grab my iPhone and my Grottos and just go that way, and he was like, this is,
man, they sound so good.
They're
a different kind of listening than these are kind of like, let's say, sterile in a sense, like they're supposed to be very like flat and whatnot, but the Grottos are what I would call fun to listen to, but not in like the bass heavy like Beats way or whatever. It's just like, it just sounds so alive, like you're in the room. It sounds amazing. Like,
absolutely,
it sounds so good. And I know that they only get better. Those are like the $300 ones.
Yeah.
If you got the like $1,000 ones, I'm sure they're even better.
Yep.
Anyway.
No, the reason I was pointing to the Grottos, outside of the fact that you own them, is that in that there's other article with I forget the guy's name, but he's like a world-class producer. It's like those are his go-to for listening.
They're just fun. They sound great. This is like the most enjoyable listening. Yeah.
Yep. And the same thing with these. It's like I don't watch TV that much anymore. I'll just throw these on and sit in my comfy chair over there and toast for a while, just listening to tunes. course, that means now I'm almost done with a project for my brother, at which point I'm going to update everything so I can get that through my laptop, having the higher res lossless and so on, because it really makes a huge difference, like stunning difference in the sound. But anyway, so Apple did all that, and then they have the Dolby Atmos, at which point, who is this guy? Let me just quote. What is his name?
So just to summarize, we're talking about Apple right now because they recently did an update to their streaming service to make it so you could do higher quality listens, which is great. Because I think, aside from Spotify, some of the other players are starting to make, getting more of the market share, like the titles and what was the other one? I saw Q bits or something like that, and which I think they're like, they're all like real high end quality audio. You can really hear a difference between, like, I have Tidal, and we also had Spotify for a while, and like there's like just no comparison. Even like the lowest, crappiest Tidal version is way better than the best Spotify. Like even if the Spotify will be like, this is 24-bit 96K or whatever, and the Tidal one says 8-bit or something, the Tidal one actually sounds way better. They just, however they do it, it's a better quality file. So absolutely. I'm sure Apple was starting to feel that a little bit.
Well, I mean, just like I was saying, it's like I'm looking at Tidal because I'm really getting sick of the quality of the Apple stuff, because I noticed a significant drop off.
It would still be an interesting comparison to grab Tidal for a month or something.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. I mean, I always see these deals going on for Tidal for like $4 for a couple of months of the high tier streaming. Right. For $4 a month, I'll give it a shot just to see if there's any difference. And that's what was tempting me over to them. And then I heard the rumors about Apple doing it, and then they finally did, like a couple of weeks after that, which is great. And I'm absolutely loving it. It's like I'll go for walks at night using my Odyssey in-ears and just listen to it that way. Now that I have an unlimited plan, I can stream in lossless, because your files go from like 3 to 6 meg to 150 meg for 4 minutes. So it's really the quality.
You're getting a hum from you, I think.
I guess we can keep rolling. So this guy,
the power of the internet.
Yeah, exactly. What's this? Left Sets. Left Sets. He's a blogger. My buddy Neil turned me on to him, and he sent me this huge rundown of like what's going on with Apple and this Dolby Atmos thing, because like when all the recordings, and he mentions this in his blog post, all the recordings when they went from mono to stereo, you had producers going back in and taking the mono track.
Wait. I'm sorry. Can you step back, because I wouldn't have known what Dolby Atmos was before reading that article. So can you highlight what it is first, and then we can talk?
Oh yeah, it's Dolby Atmos / spatial audio. So basically, it's getting a surround sound out of stereo imaging. That's my rundown of it. At least because you don't need special headphones. You don't need to have the Apple ones, though. The Apple branded stuff does it automatically, like turns on that feature automatically. I don't have Apple headphones because I refuse to do that.
I mean, a lot of things have that like surround sound button.
Yeah, this is not that, because this is in the actual mix itself. And the Apple, one of the things that made me go, this is pretty darn good, because when it works, it's freaking amazing. When it doesn't work, it's awful. Like, it just weakens the punch considerably, which is something that I noticed when I was listening to it, and something that was also in the blog. So they're not blowing smoke when that happens. But anyways, so it basically is a re-imaging of the original source material, and it creates a sound stage, but on the mix end and not on the headphone end, I guess, if that makes sense. And so what they're doing is they're going back and they're taking all these original stereo mixes and putting them into Dolby Atmos, whether or not the artist is involved. So leave that.
So they have an algorithm that maybe it's just automatic.
I don't think it's automatic, because different guys are doing it in different ways, and you can totally hear.
Really?
So I'm not sure.
There's not like tens of thousands of those things already.
They're pumping them out clearly, but I don't think.
Then it must be fairly like push this button and.
To an extent, I think some of it is clearly being done that way, but I think
Yeah.
there are show-off tracks are not, because to get to the track that Apple does, like this thing of they have like a Marvin Gaye. What's the name of the track? Not Sexual Healing. Not Let's Get It On. What the heck? Why don't I just look it up? It's like right here on my phone. What's going on?
He's
That's
been
it.
listening to it
Yeah,
all
getting
day
myself.
long.
So no, it's called the track's What's Going On, and like they do a breakdown. They're like, here's the original mono thing, blah blah blah, and you can hear that. Like they point out the stuff, the typical stuff. You know, you hear it
Yeah.
generally flat, the same signals coming out of both speakers and so or ear things. You have to use your headphones when you're listening to it to really hear it. And then they go to the stereo, and they're like, now you can hear like the drums are over here, the bass is here, you know, the voice is coming through both channels, so on, stereo mix, and then now it's Dolby's spatial audio.
Wait, so there's a thing to listen to show that, or they
one track that they go through each thing. So clearly,
so where's that at?
It's in Apple Music.
So you have to use Apple Music.
Yeah, and that's available on all phones. It's not just a Apple thing. You can download the app on a Droid phone or whatever. Anyways, so it goes through all layers of that. It's like, this is mono. Okay, now we're moving the stereo, and you can hear like the separation of like the bass on one side and or however he mixed it. I don't remember off the top of my head, because it's only 1 3-minute track. It's not like, each one gets played through the whole way. It's just a show off thing. And then they finally do the spatial audio, and that in that mix, that was just like, whoa. Okay, because you can hear like, oh, the acoustic guitar is here, the electric's over here, bass player is clearly a little bit behind the electric guitar player next to the drummer, and just like and Marvin Gaye's voice is like right in the front, and it's full, and it's lush, and there's separation. It sounds like you're sitting on a stage. It's awesome.
Do you think they had the original tracks to do that one?
I would hope so, or they're pulling some incredible tech stuff that I'm not familiar with.
Because you were just talking about using the stereo mix. And they're taking the stereo mix to convert it. So that sounds like a different
more like they got the masters and are going from that, which I wouldn't be surprised, as that might be the defining thing as to what makes one sound poppingly good and the other ones sound really flat. Is if they're just going from like a stereo already mixed left and right and running it through an algorithm. It's like an auto tune for spatial audio, versus having
like the surround sound buttons.
Yeah, exactly. And then,
which never sound good.
Nope, not at all. You're surrounding me in fecal matter. That's great, super. Sonically, so this one, the Marvin Gaye track, was absolutely superbly done. Norah Jones, don't know why, same thing. Sounded like you were listening to her in a club, but in a well-mixed club. The sound guy was getting paid enough, everybody was happy, that type of thing. And then there's like Papa Roach and Linkin Park and
which
all.
No one liked it to begin with, so it's just as bad
I'll
as it was.
I'll give you that much, but like. I A-B'd them left, I A-B'd it, like I listened to the Norah Jones and the stereo and lossless, and I turned on the Dolby Atmos, and there's definitely a big difference with it. And it's good, but there's other ones where it was just like you went from the stereo mix to the other one, and all of a sudden the bass just disappeared. The voice got hidden way, way, way in the back. And it's just, it doesn't sell the platform at all. And disappointingly enough, most of the orchestral stuff that I've listened to has been terrible. Like I'm just like, I was expecting like this huge sounding thing, and it's like, no, I'm sitting in the back of not Severance, because Severance sounds good. I'm sitting in E.J. Thomas, and it's it's like, well, it's getting to me, but it's not that good of a sound, which was thoroughly disappointing. I have yet to listen to that producer that I was mentioning recommended Albrecht Meyer. He's an oboe player. His Mozart album is done in spatial audio, and I haven't listened to that yet. In fact, I think I'll go on my walk and listen to that later on. But it's and that's supposed to be like sublime, which I would love to hear that, because I love orchestra.
Yeah, sure.
So hearing it,
if it sounds good,
and that's the thing. It's like it's not a slouch. Or an old recording. They're doing Mahler by Gustav.
So I guess out of curiosity, if you go back to the Marvin Gaye example, did you happen to find like a 24-bit 192?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Before the spatial thing.
Yeah, that's what they put it as. Like it's not just like
What I'm
it's still.
saying is there's a non-spatial version and then
Yeah.
there's a spatial version,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, you can do that. That's a setting in the Apple Music thing. If you turn it on to Dolby Atmos, it'll put it into the Dolby
Well, and
Atmos.
then okay, and
No,
then
it's not
so
going to.
with better headphones in particular, you can hear the soundstage and you can kind of get a sense of depth, right? That's part
Yeah,
of the
yeah, that's
brilliance of the great headphones. So you notice an improvement when I went to the spatial one?
yes, absolutely. Like I'm telling you, man, definitely at least check out that track if you get like a free like Apple Music, just in the sense of just now. At the same time, this is like a Bose ad, where they, oh, you think it's coming from this big stereo, and it's really the small
This
speaker, whatever.
tiny little speaker.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
it's kind of interesting because like most
Horrible.
Apple people use AirPods, which sound horrible.
Yes, I completely
So
agree
it's
with
like,
that. My
well,
wife
so is
has a.
that the?
And
Uh,
but that's exactly like in the app itself that it has it so that if you have AirPods, it'll automatically put everything into Dolby Atmos through them, which is kind of like, why not just have it if you're plugged in if it works for all headphones? That's annoying as hell because that's like just the Apple and like the
well, that
AirPods.
doesn't seem. I mean, so you have to turn it on because if you don't like it, then you don't have to have it on
Yeah,
automatically, right?
absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Like
I'd rather it default to not being on than ever default to be on, even with AirPods.
yeah, and that's all stuff that you can control on
Yeah.
the app. You can set it to automatic, not automatic, always on, always off. You can select it, and that'll make it so that it comes through whichever way that you're looking for. And like I said, with the Odysseys, which are the planar magnetic in-ears, open back. The Nobles are great, but they're closed back, so I can't like hear anything once I
Yeah.
put those in, which is awesome for late night listening. But um, the Odysseys are open back, so and they're a plug in with the DAC and the cable. So they're already kicking as it is. But once you put that Dolby Atmos on that track, on the Nora Jones, on some other stuff, I was hoping
Yeah.
that it's like, oh, Steve Vai, like, no Steve Vai. And, granted, we tend to listen to a little bit more of the obscure things, so those aren't necessarily in the tracks. But some of it is fantastic. The solo instruments don't really do too much with that,
Yeah.
like, which I kind of expected because I'm like, you're not going to have space. It's one instrument in front of you. The reverberation can give the sense of space in the room.
Yeah.
Like David Russell's recording, it's like clearly he's playing in a hall, a very live hall, and they don't have the mics anywhere close to the guitar. Which and then you have like Jason Vio's recordings where you can go to the church where he did the recordings in Cleveland, and it sounds absolutely fantastic. In my sense, I like his recording and mixings a lot better than David Russell's, even though their playing is fantastic, both of them. It's just a matter of how they record the albums. So that says something to it. But in terms of turning on the Dolby Atmos on the solo instrument stuff, which they had like the 1001 G minor fugue, da 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 da, that one.
Yeah.
And then which is cool. It's an amazing piece, but the Dolby Atmos didn't make it sound that much better to me. Like it sounded better just in stereo because honestly, when you're dealing with one instrument, that's what you're hearing it just the left and the right.
Right.
It's like it's different if player A is over here or player B is here and this is over here. And
Yeah, it can sound like you're in a room where you're like, oh, the guitar amp's over there and the bass
Yeah.
player's over there. Yeah.
So, and like the other thing that it doesn't do is head track, which I don't see what the point would be because that would annoy the crap out of me. Is if I turned my head, I would hear the music shift.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like, how is that like cool? And it's like, no, I want it constant.
Well, I think that comes from like the augmented reality stuff, right?
Yeah, I
like
get
you want to
that.
be like, what is that Oculus Rift? Like you want to go, what was that sound over there? And turn your head and you would hear now it would change direction. Now the person would be in front of you instead of to your left or something.
I can see how that would be kind of cool, but annoying at the same time because it all depends on when. It's like my chief thing with virtual reality. Virtual reality is a hell of a lot of fun for about 30 minutes, and then it's like I'm working way too hard to do this stuff. It's like.
Well, I guess so. Imagine this though. Imagine, and we're going a little bit off topic here, but it's sort of interesting. If you could put a performance camera on, in one of those 360 cameras.
Yeah. Yep.
And you had a band surrounding it, wouldn't it be sweet in a way? And it'd have to be subtle because it's not like the sound would totally change. But if you could be like, oh, I'm looking at the drummer, and the drummer's just a little bit louder now, and it's sort of in the center, but it's still everywhere, like a drums would be, but, and then you like kind of turn to someone else, and that'd be kind of cool to be like, oh, there's the guitar player, and like, that'd be awesome.
That would be cool.
Like if you were sitting in the middle of your favorite band and they were just playing for you.
Before with the surround sound when it first came out, when they had those DVDs of albums, that would put it. I mean, it was all super high res and it would use a high.
It's funny too.
Which
why
was
did surround sound die? Is it just because everyone went to like a minimalist thing where they just want like, I want 500 watts in this little speaker. Which is not a speaker, but and like people just want these like portable little speaker looking things that are no bigger than this microphone.
Maybe that's part of it right there. Is the portability factor killed the need for surround sound because you can't imitate that out of one unit. You need to have
and everything switched to sound bars, but the sound bars have never sounded as good as most people's surround sound that they used to have.
It's cheap and efficient. I mean, and I don't begrudge that. I use a sound bar in my workout. In my
I think it's like more of like you're like before there. If you walked into a room with surround sound speakers, it was like, whoa, this is a nice place. But now when you walk in, you're like, this place is trashy. It's like a different. The social vision of surround sound changed, unless it's like built into your walls and it looks like real fan, right? If it's a really high end social, like that high end audio is always going to seem like high class or something, but everybody had the like crappy like wires running down the wall or whatever, and like everyone was like, that's cool, like it's surround sound, of course you would do that. And somehow what's really fascinating about this, as I'm totally going off, is when the HD TVs came, when 1080p and all that stuff, that's when surround sound died. Yeah. Like you would have thought it'd been the opposite. Like that would have been like its time to shine, but it didn't. It's sort of a weird
Even thing. With my main TV, I don't bother to hook up like any externals. I think I've thought about it, but I'm like, I don't really want it that loud, just to be blunt.
Well, so we have a sound bar under ours because it just sounds better, but I would say it's only used 20% of the time, and I'm pretty much the only one who uses it because sometimes it just annoys me listening to the TV speaker, which isn't that great.
Yeah, I just subtitles. That's most of my stuff. It's like subtitles. I'll just read it.
But if you're gonna watch a movie too, like a real movie, like with like an action movie, and like it's like you don't want it to just be like, there's a bomb, tink. You want to kind of feel something, or like it makes it more enjoyable when the floor shakes or something, even though the soundbar thing we have doesn't really do that.
No, I get it. Well, that's why the theater experience is pretty cool when he goes to an action.
Yeah.
It's like the old Simpsons thing when the THX thing comes on and everybody starts to the battery and the grandpa.
Like, yes. Yeah, it's part of the experience. But that sounded cool in your house too, and everyone had surround sound.
Yep.
But now no one has surround sound anymore. So I would love to put it in my room. I don't think my wife would let me.
I bought those PlayStation 3D audio headphones that are wireless for when I play games, and that's pretty cool. That's almost
so that does have the like I turn my head and stuff changes. Yeah.
And that's scary as hell. Just, if you're playing a game that's mildly intense, it's like when you hear something behind you, like I was sitting there going like, is one of my kids up? Oh God, I can't play this game at night. Like I can't do it. I get so like scared with it. And you can turn that off so that it's just stereo, which makes it nice in that regard.
That's like the augmented reality stuff too, right? The Oculus Rift or whatever. And you can like get lost in that sort of thing where like it's dark. And like, I really wouldn't know if somebody was sneaking up on me and gonna stab me or something.
Oh, yeah, I played. My brother has a HTC Vive, and this was a couple of years ago when we were out visiting him, and he had that. And there's this game called the Brookhaven Experiment, where it was basically a zombie shooter. But it was, 360 degrees.
All right.
Basically standing in this like open field in one of the scenarios and shooting them in every which way, and so. It scared the crap out of me, and I like took the thing off, and it took me a second to adjust back to where I was.
Reality, yeah.
Yeah, it was like, wow, that was really intense. Never gonna play that one again, but that was fun, But I don't like getting the scare thing. The Star Wars one though was awesome. That was pretty cool. It was like a small 10-minute demo,
Right. Yeah. Oh, I think I've seen what you're talking. It's like the video one where you like fly onto that plane and stuff, or the plane with Darth Vader.
No, it's like it happens on Tatooine or whatever, and you're like helping Han out with something, and stormtroopers show up, and R2D2 comes down the ramp and shoots a lightsaber at you, and you catch it, and sending stuff back. It's like, my 10-year-old self would love to shoot. My 40-year-old self is loving this. So,
and I dropped a Lawnmower Man reference the other day at work. I was pretty proud of myself.
Very nice. Did anybody catch it or no?
I don't know. Because we were talking about augmented realities, and I was like, Project Lawnmower Man.
Yep. That's going way. The graphics in that were definitely.
If you don't know that, then you need to go watch that movie this week and get back to us.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least read the book or something. You get to choose.
Yes, or the audiobook. That'll be out in Dolby Atmos. I don't know about that one, but anyways, so yeah, it's like all these immersive.
King is right behind you,
speaking into your ear very creepily. Doesn't even have to do much. All he has to do is read it, and you're gonna get scared. So, at least for Lawnmower Man was more of like a horror thriller thing, but not like the.
You remember that movie though? Like that was like the coolest thing ever.
Oh yeah,
like the highest tech movie ever.
Yep. And now it's
was it Laserdisc or was it like the mini disc? I can't remember.
Like,
or was it just a DVD like kind of thing?
I think it was before DVDs. It was just a VHS and DVDs.
No. There was like a disc in that. I'm almost certain.
Wait, in the movie? Like
in the movie.
In the movie. I don't remember.
I think it was either, how like so we had CDs. Yeah. And for a while it was like they were before CDs there was Laserdisc,
which we had.
So, and those were those like big like record looking CDs.
Yep.
That would skip like even if you like walked in the room.
If you're shaking the floor,
and no one could afford them, so like maybe your school had it or something. You guys had one?
My dad got one. He had a
early on.
Early on, man. I remember taking the original Star Wars trilogy. We had every single one of them on Laserdisc.
Wasn't it on like 3 disc each
movie?
Yeah,
you had to flip them halfway through.
Yeah.
Which it was still I don't remember if it was any better quality or not. It was all 480p back then anyway, so it's kind of like, what's the point?
On my 25-inch, 700-pound TV, it looked great.
Yep. Well, it probably did compared to whatever else was out. I was still a kid. I was my son's age now, like 9 or 10.
I remember they had it at school when I was at school. Like the science people were the only people that had them. Mm-hmm. They probably had to like blow like a 10-year budget to buy one of those.
Yep, and
instantly be obsolete.
That's speaking of which, to tie this back to the thing with the Dolby Atmos, is like this guy in the article, this Les Sets guy, made a good point. He's like, when the original albums that were all in mono switched to stereo, the only ones that were coming down the pipeline were the ones that were in true stereo. They were recorded. Yeah. Otherwise, they had engineers just taking the mono tracks and splitting it into a stereo signal or whichever to redo it. So you had like this hybridization of stuff the stuff that was built in it sounded great. The stuff that was mimicked in it sounded kind of like meh. And so there was this big transitional period of the tech going from like taking all the older hit albums, because those are the ones that would sell in the new formula, and remixing them in stereo and putting it out like it's stereo. It's next big.
It's just another opportunity to sell something, right?
Exactly. Plus, it's all the investment costs to get the new systems going. How do you sell the new systems? You got to have something that people are going to attach. Those are the standard things when there's a great technology. And then I didn't know this, but there was another format that came out after that called Quad that died a very, very quick death because there was two competing formats for that when it came out. And both of them just didn't get a market share, didn't get the thing that killed that is that it wasn't just like one format of quad. If you're stereo, it was like...
What was quad?
I don't know. I didn't...
It was a stereo format or it was
the next step up from stereo, which I'm guessing is like...
4 speakers?
4 speakers. You know, like front, left, right, back, left, right type of thing.
Yeah.
The surround
And
sound.
you know, I never understood in a way, was why cars never took advantage of the surround sound thing.
Yeah.
It would have seemed like an easy thing to do, relatively speaking. Maybe there are surround sound car, receivers or whatever, but
Quadraphonic sound, that's what it is. Sound equivalent to what is now called 4.0 surround sound.
Okay. So 4 speakers, front, front, left, back, right, whatever.
Yep, that's exactly it. Thank you, Internet. So that makes sense. And then 5.1 came out, which is the one with the middle speaker and then the two in the back and the sub. Right. That's 5.1, and then 7 clearly has 7 speakers or something like that. I don't know. I mean,
there was 10.2.
And then there was just a room that was a ball of speakers.
It did get bigger for a while. Remember they used to have, what were those CDs called you could buy? And you probably still can. Like the super audio ones.
Yeah, that died.
Then never really took off, but I always was curious about those.
Well, they went to the 24-bit with the super audio CDs.
Well, but I think it was 24-bit 5.1 maybe, or 7.1.
Not sure if it was in the 5.1 thing, but it was a higher audio bit rate.
Well, there was definitely like a surround sound speaker.
Yeah,
one
that was later on.
Yeah,
that was not the super audio. That was
okay. It wasn't okay.
Like Blu-rays or DVDs. Because I remember a Clapton album, live one was mixed on one of them, and I was reading. I mean, this is going way back, but he was saying like it was so cool to hear a piano run spin around the room. Like that to me is a cool idea. Like taking that type of thing and making the instruments move in all the spaces so that you're actually mixing the sound in that particular space. Michael Manring on one of his tracks on, I think it's called a Firma on the Book of Flame. He had a track that was mixed in that type of thing where the track would spin around the room and it would go like up above and below and behind. Like he was like, it was in the liner notes, of the actual CD saying that you should listen to this.
Yeah, I think if you planned it out, you could have, it'd be a lot of fun to do a record like that. The problem is no one could listen to it because no one has surround sound.
Which brings us back to the Dolby Atmos thing is that that's what they're kind of looking at going, it's like, it's a great format for everything that is being recorded in it now. But when you're taking old stuff and trying to force it into it, it's very hit and miss. There's thousands of people in studios all over the place that can do whatever limited Dolby Atmos they can, trying to get these albums pumped out for the new format because, money, which I don't necessarily begrudge anybody for that. And I like it when it works. But the issue is that when you're trying to rush stuff out like that, the two glaring things are, one, it's rushed, so you don't know if it's going to be that good. And two, where's the artist input? It's like...
Yeah, so the punchline to all this is that Apple is doing this without artist permission.
I don't know if it's necessarily permission, but definitely not without input. Or definitely without input. I don't who knows? I'm almost willing to bet money that the artists under their contract, the studios can be like, "Well, I don't really need your input because you signed this thing."
So I think maybe that's the line is that they have a deal with Sony Records, and you're on Sony Records, and Sony was like, "Yeah, go ahead," or whatever, and then you're like, "Wait, I didn't say you could do this." We're like, "Sorry, we own your stuff for perpetuity and throughout all of the universe, and we can do whatever we want."
When they come out with Super Atmos, we're gonna do it again.
Yeah, that's right.
So
might as well just get used to it. Yeah.
That's what. So he's saying like you get that like all these engineers and doing that, and then like when I was talking with Neil about it, he was like the other thing too is like now to an extent if Dolby Atmos and this lossless stuff takes over, he's like I don't even record in 2492, or 192. He's like, I'm not even that high. So I usually, the highest I've gone is 2496. So now all of a sudden, in order to compete or not to be relevant in one sense with that format to really pull everything out of it, I have to go back, or from here on out, I have to record at this higher fidelity, which isn't too much of a problem, but hard drive space, hard drive speed, audio processing, all that needs to come up. And, so in one sense, we're seeing like that giant deep ahead of the major studios, and everybody's going to try and play catch up. So the money's going to be pouring in for interfaces that can mix and Dolby.
So that people can listen on their phones, their phone speaker.
Yeah, I'll give you that. But at least they got the lossless thing going, and the files are better quality.
For the audio file, it's good. Yeah, and I was gonna say too that the thing that's funny about the 24-bit 192K is, when I just released my record, when I went through distribution, which was through CD Baby, they made me dumb it down to 16-bit. 44K. Like that's I wasn't allowed to upload anything else.
Yeah.
So what I don't know is, because I have higher fidelity than that, which you could get on Bandcamp.
Which I
got. But yeah, it's like, well, how do I even get it to Apple to be, at the highest fidelity that I had it at?
Yeah, I
don't know how to get it to them that way.
And that might be another thing on CD Baby's end in terms of the bottlenecking.
Yeah, there's probably maybe CD Baby's like, oh, you can upload high-res files. It only costs another $300 or something.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to take their dime somehow.
Which, I guess it depends how much it is. If it was, it's really reasonable, in my opinion, the price. That forever your album can go out for like $30 and be there forever. It's hard to complain about that. So if it was $60 or something to upload, I just didn't see it. That seems probably worthwhile, I think, and I'll probably look at that in the future. But
absolutely. And so this
just
is
to spend more money on a record that you never get paid for.
It's
but at least it will sound good, Adam.
That's why I paid for the Bandcamp one, is I didn't want Apple. I mean, outside of supporting you as an artist, I'm also an audiophile, and I don't want some crap audio thing coming through my speakers of my friend's album. I'll spend the money to get the better quality coming through. The underlying thing with all of this is Apple doesn't charge anything else for it. Like, all you have to do is click it. It's not an additional fee for them, which is nice. I was pretty impressed with that, because I totally expected them, at least according to the rumor.
Did you happen to download any files to see the size differences?
I haven't downloaded them, but I did notice a difference in terms of load up time. Absolutely. Like, before it was like click and go, and this is like click, and it's quick. I mean, I'm talking like fractions of a second difference, but it definitely takes a little bit longer before it would load. And if I had lousy reception,
but not like mp3.com where you're like, all right, tomorrow morning I'm going to listen to 20 seconds of this song.
No. This was like, I first noticed a problem with it when I did the Chacon on the lute, that track that I sent you by that one guy.
Yeah.
So like that was the first track that I got in lossless, and I was going on a walk, and I was leaving my house, so I was on Wi-Fi, and then it switched over to LTE, and it took it would stop for a second, and then it would regain, because I mean, that's a 13-minute song, so you're talking almost a gig's worth of data in one sense, at the higher levels. So it
and they write those algorithms now, like, how they used to always buffer it a lot, like you could see it on YouTube or something, like it would scroll over.
Yep.
Now it's like it just gives you just enough that it doesn't, like, they've pretty much figured out where it generally doesn't give you problems, but then when you do switch to different things, it's like, oh, I wasn't ready for that. Like, I should have gave myself 3 seconds, not 2 seconds. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like there's no way you could do this, I don't think, over 3G and play it back in real time. I don't think that could happen. I didn't try it, but I was at my in-laws yesterday, and my reception sucks there. And I couldn't get onto their Wi-Fi, so like my password was outdated or whatever. Anyways, so I was like trying to play something, and it came up as 3G, and it just was not going. And then my father-in-law was like, "Oh yeah, here's your password. Click." And I'm like, "Okay, good." Now, everything was going after that. So it clearly also piggybacks on top of the transfer speeds and everything else, because otherwise you couldn't stream it. You'd have to download it. At which point, I would love it, but I would have nowhere near the same amount of access to albums, because 64 gig at that rate would, I mean, that's about an album. You got 64 albums, maybe.
Sure.
Probably less. Especially when you listen to prog or symphonic works. It's like
one song, 64 gigs.
Yep, exactly. But I mean, all in all, like
Oh, you downloaded the Wagner, the Ring.
cycle that's
That's
it.
like,
You need 2 phones and they're hooked up to additional storage and an antenna to walk around and listen to it. But
did you ever watch that video I sent you?
Which one?
The one that they do like the cool cartoon and talk about the different.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Did you watch the Ring cycle one? Oh man, it's great. You have to watch it because Lord knows the chances of me listening to that, and well, I might listen to the whole thing because I do quite appreciate his music, but
yeah.
The odds of me actually knowing what it was about was pretty slim to none, and except that I watched that video and now I know what it's about. So
yeah, now you get what the plot line is, and it kind of makes a little bit.
It actually helped the whole thing. By the way, if you're not familiar, Wagner wrote, the Wagner, the one that's hated, but also just an insanely brilliant musician.
You can't fight that fact.
That's the problem. Is he's like really not a great person.
No, he's not a good person.
not at all. But maybe like arguably the greatest like master of counterpoint and some other things that maybe ever existed.
Harmonic text rows and everything else.
Yeah, just if you can get past that other part, there's some stuff to appreciate there.
Don't read his letters. Just listen.
Yeah, don't read the letters. But he wrote a thing called the Ring cycle that is 5 operas.
Yep.
Which is loosely like Lord of the Rings, before Lord of the Rings.
It's based off the same mythology.
And and I think it takes like 16 hours or something to. So it's almost like watching they were saying in that video. It's kind of funny. Like, imagine binge watching a season on Netflix. That's kind of like, like when you watch like 16 episodes of something and they're all an hour and 20 minutes long or whatever. That's kind of like, I'm gonna go watch the whole. See, I guess there's one place in the world that plays it every year. We should do that. That'd be fun. It's in
it's in Germany
or Austria or somewhere where they do it for like the whole thing in a row. You get your like 20-minute break.
It's 4 days.
Over 4 days. Did you?
They do like
2 a day or something, like 1 a day or 2 days.
So it's like they pace it out so you can handle it, and
like that Flight of the Valkyrie, probably the most popular Wagner piece is in that thing. That's in there. I think it's like in the.
I don't know if that's the most famous because he wrote that, or it's because it was used in Bugs Bunny so much.
And Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, but Bugs Bunny first, and then Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
So
same difference.
Same thing.
I'm sorry, I'm going way off. I remember I lived in New York City, and they did the Apocalypse Now Redux. You remember that?
Yep.
And there's this really great theater, just this huge movie theater on like 46th Street or something around there. And it was cool. There really was like no one there. And it was like a place they used to do like movie premieres and stuff, like real movie premieres. So it's just a huge place. It's a pretty cool place to see movies. I doubt it's still there. I'm sure it's not. But I remember seeing that in there, and it was like 3 or 4 hours long, that version. But it was pretty awesome.
That's cool.
Anyway, wow. So yeah, Wagner. So have you listened to that on Spatial recording yet?
That hasn't, at least as far as I know, it's not available in Spatial audio. They're still like slowly.
Spatial audio, sorry.
Yeah, the Dolby Atmos. It's definitely available in the lossless, but I don't know about the Dolby Atmos mix with that just yet. So it's on my list. I mean, I had it before that I was going to listen to through the whole thing and just like first thing in the morning, driving to work.
A daunting thing to take on.
Yeah,
I think too, because it's an opera too. So if you're not used to operas, which most people aren't, even musicians.
Yeah.
And I like them, but you have to be in a certain kind of mood for it. Yeah, and absolutely. I say I like them. There's definitely like a particular style that I'm not crazy about. But and it's really like probably more of the early stuff I'm not crazy about. But a little bit later, when it gets a little more artsy. I guess I like it more. So.
And plus, it being in either German, Italian, or
Yeah,
French,
you don't know what it's about.
rare that it's in English. And by that time, you're getting into like the Barber of Seville or Sweeney Todd. I can't believe I confused those two totally different things. But anyways, it's like, and then you're getting into like the show tunes and stuff like that, which isn't necessarily bad, but that's kind of what most people are accustomed to. And when you get in the opera thing, it's kind of, but not really.
You have to be kind of in the mood for that style of singing, I think. It helps when you go. Have you ever gone to an opera, like a real one?
No, actually, I haven't.
I mean, the Cleveland Opera House is awesome. Whatever it's called, I can't remember what it's called. It's great, and it really makes a difference. It's just like any live show, like just seeing it in person kind of brings it to life a little bit more.
That and there's translation.
Though, if you've seen like a Broadway musical, there couldn't be like two more polar opposite kind of experiences.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Where like the people are so active in musicals and they're like running around and there's explosions and like it's pretty, especially on Broadway. It's like it's really, the production of it is like seeing a movie. It's unbelievable in real time. It's really something. But where operas, the sets are really cool, like a high end opera, but the people like never move. So like if the song starts, they just stay there and sing the song. Maybe they take like one step or something, but there's no like interacting, like
some
body language. It's very limited. Yeah.
I've seen some videos. They're breaking out of that box because they kind of have to in order to keep I
guess, yeah. So yeah, it's sort of an interesting experience when you're like, I want to read what, I kind of want to know what's going on. And you can't really read the body language.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like the Kevin. He did the translations for that. It's like that's why they have a screen up on the back, and that I think in that opera house where he just does all the translations of the opera and scrolls through the text.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, what's cool about the way that you would think like, oh, I don't want to see the subtitle thing. That's stupid. Like that's gonna be distracting. But the way that they do it there, it's like this little scroll thing that it's sort of like see through, and it just looks good. Like you can't. It's not distracting. It's not like annoying.
You watch it if you need it, but if you don't, it's not like going to pull you away from it.
And they're singing, so most of the time when people sing, the word, it's not like a normal speech pattern. It's a little bit longer phrases, right? It's like, I love you. Like it's going to take like a second to say that. It's not like I love you. Blah, 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 blah. So it's not like watching a movie with subtitles when you're like, okay. Like when it gets really busy and like 10 people are talking, you're trying to read like 50 lines, but also look at the screen. Like it can be a little bit daunting sometimes. But in the opera, it's like the words just the nature of singing. They don't tend to go as fast. So you can keep up and keep an eye on the thing. It's pretty cool. So yeah, that's all about Dolby.
It's all about the Dolby Atmos. And in summation with it, I think when it works incredible. I'm glad that they're doing it. I hope that they take more time with the processing of it. And I'd love to hear newer stuff done in that and really hear what that is.
A couple of things that I was thinking of when you were saying that is it's probably easier for their algorithms to do earlier recordings. So like if you listen to a lot of like the 60s recordings when they went to stereo at first, they'd still have like the drums on the left, the like fully left, and the guitar on the right, and the bass on the right or whatever, and the vocal on the left. Nothing in the middle, nothing on both sides. There isn't any weird phasing. They're very like panned hard left or right. And I would imagine if you had that, then it would be easier to take that file and do something interesting like from a distance standpoint, because you can sort of isolate those things a little bit more. But in the sort of modern stereo world where there's like endless phasing things going on, and everything's like quarter, like one's like sort of here, but it's like a little bit over here, and then like, then it has a reverb that's bouncing back and forth, and like it starts to get really messy, and I think that's why some of those algorithms don't work very well, like the surround sound algorithm or whatever.
Probably, I can see what it's exactly your point with that.
It's just fighting so much phasing problems that somebody solved to make it work in stereo, but as soon as they went to something else, it's like, well, how are you going to solve that? The other way.
Yeah, and then back to the point. It's like you always, it's like the early adoption of most new technology. It's always going to be kind of like there's going to be some standouts that show you the exact potential where it's going to go, and that's really exciting. And then there's everybody else trying to jump onto the bandwagon and seeing what just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And
so I have to say, I'm skeptical because I haven't heard this that it actually sounds like it's around you more than. I guess I'm just skeptical.
Give it a shot. Like for me, the big thing that happened through what's going on was
especially with headphones. Like how they would do it with headphones is sketchy on.
I don't know. I mean, it's probably some headphone gnome or whichever that's in there and working them that you don't see. But
you go over there, and I'll go over here, and you go over there, and I'll go over here, and then you're gonna make that sound, and not right.
So I'm over here. Step 3, profit. What happened to step 2? Anyways,
something like phasing trick probably.
Yeah, but I will say that, like, just going through that Marvin Gaye track really helped establish what exactly it's doing, because every instrument sounded unto itself, and there wasn't that much bleeding. Like it wasn't, if at all. Like when I heard the acoustic guitar in that track, it was like here. It wasn't like here and then spread out. It was like, nope, right there. The electric guitar is right there. And you could really distinctly tell the difference between the instruments, which was a big, big tell for me. It was like, all right, because in the stereo, you could hear them both going, but they were definitely kind of overlapping. And it wasn't like a phasing thing in terms of like canceling, but it was just like,
where they were.
Well, here's the thing. They were playing the exact same part, So it was like, yeah, I can kind of hear there's 2 guitars going on, but it's not like I don't hear 2 guitars. Went to the Dolby Atmos, and it's like, boom, nope, that's definitely acoustic. There's an electric guitar. Okay, that's cool. And the way his voice came out. A lot of the ones that sound terrible, the voice disappears. It goes well into the back. Like you don't have like that mixed presence of those particular things that keep it to the front and center. So you lose that. You lose the punchiness of the bass. It just goes poof. You're like, what the hell happened? Which was really disappointing in some of the tracks, especially with the orchestral stuff. It's like, let's hear. And what did you stick a mute?
Have you played with mid-sideband mixing stuff yet?
Mid-sideband?
You would know if I said it. So,
no, really not.
Yeah. So that's a big deal when you're mixing albums, especially with lots of instruments. Because there's sort of 2 ways to approach it, which is stereo, which I think we all understand what that is. But the mid-sideband thing is basically you mix the middle of your sound stage different than the sides. And if you do it the right way, you can actually make your mix sound much wider. In sort of the way that it works. So you process them separately. So like all those plugin alliance ones, the Brainworks stuff, like they all have the MS, the mid-sideband stuff. That's like their big thing that they really push. But they're not the only ones. But they're probably the top people doing it, or at least the most well known. Because pretty much every one of their plugins you can set up that way. You can say you actually process the middle different. So anything that's in the center channel, so to speak, even in stereo, so like the bass, the kick drum, those kind of things, you can process that different. You could say, I'm going to cut these higher frequencies out, and I'm going to boost the lower frequencies. And then on the sides, the really far left and right, I'm going to cut out anything below 150 hertz. So no bass is going there, and I'm going to boost the high end a little bit, and it actually makes it sound wider. And makes, so there's all these kind of things you can do. Highly recommend looking into it. I mean, there's tricks with compression. There's tricks with EQ. In particular, I mean, in some ways that's really all there is to mixing. But you can use those different things differently. So you could actually compress the sides different than you compress the mid.
Okay.
And all these kind of things. So yeah, it's fascinating. It's probably not something you would do with a solo instrument, but multiple instruments is something that it's really useful, especially to make your mix sound wider.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the reason I'm saying that is, I could imagine that it's doing something similar to that. Like basically you're processing these things in a different way, and it's almost like they're taking the mid channel and sort of trying to segment that out and put it in different locations, right? Like splitting it up. And usually the mid channel on most recordings is the vocals, like the main vocal, bass, kick drum, snare drum. Those are sort of like your hallmark center of the mix sort of things. So if you did that, I could see where if they cut it in a certain way or whatever, like you could really lose that vocal, especially if it was in the center.
Oh, okay, I see.
But again, like if it was the more like the '60s stereo style, where like the lead vocal was on the left, which I'm not sure if the Marvin Gaye one was like that or not, but it might have been. Then it wouldn't get lost, right? So it'd be anything that was sort of like in the center that you might lose. So what would also be interesting to know listening to it is if the kick and the bass and the snare got quieter as well on those mixes.
I didn't notice that in the Marvin Gaye at all. I definitely noticed that in some of the other tracks. It was just
so
like,
I'm thinking specifically of the ones you thought that the vocals disappeared. Did you also lose the bass, the kick, the snare, the hi-hat? Things that are typically in the center, did they get lost? Yeah.
The drums were okay. The kick probably did go down, and I'm just going to say that because of the bass also going down. Like so that makes sense exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's almost like they took the mid channel and they're doing something funny with it.
Prevalent.
Yeah. You should play you should at least get an EQ that has mid sideband, which a lot of them do. You might even have stuff already that hasn't. You just didn't know what that button was. Because it'll actually, usually it changes. Like sometimes, how like you might have like a left and a right processing. When you press that MS button, the one goes to mid and one goes to sideband. So it's different. So now it's not left and right. It's the middle channel versus the sides. And so, yeah, just look in your plugins and then play with it. Like do something really extreme, like cut all the highs out of the mid or something, and you can really hear it. Like all of a sudden the mix goes like, it's very fascinating. And now it might not sound good because you did it too extreme, but you can kind of play with it and figure out where the line is. And one of the big tricks is taking bass out of the sides. Like you don't really need like low basses on the side. So just by doing that alone, and you can't really do that with a stereo mix. You can't really cut it out in a way. So, I mean, you can in a sense by like cutting out, like say you pan the guitars hard left and right, or the keyboard hard left and right. You could cut out everything up to 140 hertz or whatever, and then you would lose that a bit on the side. So you can kind of like make the illusion, but this actually makes it way easier. Anyway, I'm wondering if they do something like that a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, we can probably look it all up and read more about. I mean, in one
I just wonder, how quickly does it descend into like super nerdy algorithm-y stuff?
To go in there pretty hard, pretty quick.
Like, all right.
That being said, I can see it being the next big thing. When it hits, it sounds freaking amazing. When it misses, the stereo sounds way better, like categorically better than all the other stuff.
That would be nice if Apple was like, hey, after some reviews, we realize you normally have this on Spatial, but on this particular case, trust us. Just listen to the stereo one. And then you'd be like, oh, I want to hear the Spatial one now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we didn't really go into it too much, but you know, if your record label or whatever said yes, and then then they can just do it and make a bad sounding Dolby Atmos thing. Like that's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. I mean, it's like that's why the artist input. That's the thing that really irks me. It's like I think the artist input would be absolutely crucial with that, because
Yeah.
I mean, yourself. You sat there over that mastering aspect. Um,
Yeah.
it's like you were like on the ball with that, with every little detail. And then could you imagine if you did all that work and you set it out that way, and then somebody else came in and said, "Oh, we're gonna do this," and like you had no say with it? I'd be like, the hell? How do I pay a hacker to go in there and get rid of these things completely?
Yeah. I mean, you kind of do in a way anyway. Like I said, like it's not like Spotify and Tidal sound the same.
True.
Right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So
on
you're
that.
sort of, it does sound different in those than it did in, here.
Mm-hmm.
And even Bandcamp, like it doesn't sound as good as it did,
Which is weird because it's a digital thing. You figured that the replications would be absolutely
Yeah,
the
but
same.
they're also like repackaging it. For instance, not like I didn't upload a FLAC file to Bandcamp. They take a WAV file and then they create it out of there. So there's some kind of conversion,
Hmm.
you know. And I don't even think you had the option of doing a FLAC file. I'm pretty sure you don't. So it's not like, so they do something and then they also make an MP3 out of it. So they're doing some kind of processing on it. And I don't know, whatever that is, it's still a conversion,
Mm-hmm. Who knows? That's that could be an entirely new subject. With that,
Well,
I mean,
that plugin alliance, they actually make an app that it's just like too much to get into. But I guess if you really cared, they have an app that is like you could hear what it sounds like through the Spotify algorithm, hear what your mix sounds like through the Apple one, hear what it sounds like through name any streaming service and probably Bandcamp. You could click it and you flip through it and see what your track's going to sound like if anything weird happens. But I was like, that was a level I wasn't willing to go to.
yeah, that would add on a whole nother layer of sitting there for months.
So
and
then
tweak.
what are you going to do? Like,
have to tweak it for this
if like the
service.
Spotify one doesn't sound good, are you going to go back and like change the mix?
Well, that was like one of my friends said. He's like, all I care about is if the Spotify sounds good, like and his own thing with his own music. He's like, the rest of the stuff, whatever. But like most of my like he looked at it like most of the plays come through Spotify. I care how that one sounds about. Like that's which
Even
makes
though
sense.
It's funny because he gets like one play on something else and it's like 10 plays on Spotify, but whatever.
And
Price
I think
wise.
it's more than that on this one. I think it's much more, especially for this. But regardless, the underlying motif is that like that's another factor with it. Not only you have the conversion aspects, but then you have the artistic aspect of, well, I'm doing really well over here, so I'm going to invest more over here because that makes sense. So why would I bother to tweak this mix for this service where I'm getting like a tenth of what I'm getting over here? So that makes it, and this could also be another ploy by Apple to pull everybody under that particular umbrella, because it's like, look what our service does, and it's just multifactorial problems and everything else,
Sure.
causes and whichever. My bottom line is just make it sound good. That's it. I want to hear it sounding good. And if you do a terrible job, shame on you, and you should be ashamed. So whatever. I don't know. But I love the possibilities of it. I think, like I said, I've probably said it a dozen times. When it works, it's friggin' amazing. When it doesn't work, it's horrendously disappointing and hollow. So ultimately, I think that we have a good start off with it. And given Apple's market share with that and their ability to deliver this thing at no additional cost, that puts them a little bit ahead of the curve. But now the downstream thing is every home studio, if they're going to do it in Dolby Atmos, needs to upgrade their stuff to be able to get to that level of fidelity, mixing ability, interfaces, and so on. So it's like you're going to be another tech arms race for the next 5 years.
Maybe.
To get up to, I mean,
I'm like, I guess I'm still skeptical that it'll take off, but I mean, it doesn't hurt to have Apple in your corner.
Yeah.
I guess it just depends if people use it or not. You know.
Yep.
And
So
when I think about the majority of people listening on it, best their AirPods.
Mm-hmm.
You're really talking very niche market. You know, of 1,000 people with good headphones. So
Yeah. Well,
it's like you're gonna make them happy, I guess. That seems like a lot of effort. Yeah. Now the lossless thing, I don't know. I don't know about that one either. Too, it'd be really interesting to see if you could get stats from all of them. You know, Spotify too. Like, do people leave it at high quality, like the highest quality setting, just naturally? Do people never change it? So if it's just like normal setting, did it just stay there? Or do people actually downgrade it to a low setting so they can save bandwidth and they just don't care? So like where do normal people fall on that line? Where's the mean to that? Do people typically look for the high quality one? My guess is people don't ever look for it. And it just, whatever it defaults to, it just stays there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, clearly I was jumping at the gun to get to this in particular thing with the Apple. Yeah. And in fact,
and like most people are like, wait, they did that? I didn't even know. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was talking with my brother. I'm like, dude, you got to check this out. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, dude, the lossless is out. This is going to be great. You got to, but how do I do it? You know, it's like, I don't think there was enough of an announcement behind the scenes of Apple, like telling
everybody. Well, also, did they not have multiple quality versions before?
No, it was just like one.
Oh, really? Thing. Interesting.
Yeah.
Because all the stuff we've ever had, it's always had choices, at least 3. Even Spotify has 3, at least 3 choices.
Apple has always been like, what you see is what you get, which was a disappointing aspect. Like I said, yeah. I don't think it was poor, but it definitely wasn't top of the thing.
Well, they are a pretty stupid company.
They can be. It's like, there's no doubt about it. They've definitely had some misses. Looking at you, Beats. Looking at you. Even though branding wise they're huge, but anybody that's remotely in audio is like, what the hell are you doing to your ears with those things? So they're so.
So it's not iTunes anymore, because I have I do have an iPhone.
No, it's not. It's Apple Music.
So how come there's iTunes on my phone here?
That's for movies.
There says music.
Mine is Apple Music. Like.
So how would you
see the little thing in the corner?
If I looked up Marvin Gaye.
Tim, look at me. That thing right there is Apple Music. iTunes is a separate thing. You can buy stuff through it, but it's a different thing. Yeah, because the iTunes store is that.
It's the little red music note thing?
Yeah. And in order to turn on the high quality stuff, you have to go through the settings. Like, you have to go through the settings, music, pick lossless, and then turn on or off Dolby Atmos if you want.
There's a try it for free. Spatial audio with Dolby Atmos.
There it is.
I'm not going to try it for free. Well, part of it is I don't have the little adapter for headphones.
Oh, yeah, that is a crucial thing. But yeah, I mean, my Odyssey is as an Apple cable, so that's there. And then I bought the Lightning cable for the Nobles, and then I have an adapter for these. Of course, I won't use that new amp thing that I just got. That's coming through. Is that I bought particular for these if I wanted to use them with my phone just to hear it. Rather than through the other setup, because I think if I'm reading the numbers right, it's got more than enough power in that little amp to push it for these. Because if these will play through the Apple through the phone, but you'll lose the bass punch a huge amount.
Interesting. I'm looking at the Tidal app. There's a 360 reality audio. I don't know what that is. And if that's supposed to be competitive or not. It's not Dolby, of course.
Yeah. Let's see. Dolby Atmos competitors. Oh, there it is.
I can't type on iPhones. 360 audio title. Sony Spatial Audio Technology.
DTSX is the versus Dolby Atmos. DTS. So DTS.
I'll also try it on my good phone and see what it's like. With any headphones, it sounds like it's the same thing. Interesting.
So there's like there's three. Like its rival Dolby Atmos. DTSX is an object-based audio format that can place sound into more specific locations around the room. Blah blah blah. So it looks like there's a couple of different formats.
Interesting.
So, anyways, so before we end up staring at our phones for the rest of the podcast,
I know. I'm just. It's kind of interesting.
Let's do this. Let's have you listen to those things, and we can pick up the discussion for the next episode about what you think were the pluses or the minuses.
Conclusion.
The conclusion, to the we'll end on a cliffhanger.
I was like, I wonder if there's a YouTube video or something that shows it too, if they have high enough quality or not.
Oh, well, that was part of the chief reason I wanted to go to titles. The YouTube video quality, the audio is.
Well, you know what I mean. So it'd be kind of neat if somebody made a video.
Oh.
That was like, check this out. Here's the different algorithms, and you can hear what the 360 audio from Sony sounds like compared to compared to Dolby Atmos.
Dolby Atmos test. Yeah, there's demos for that.
I guess, I wonder if they're legit or not, but.
Yeah, Dolby Atmos demo sound tests, 5.1, 7.1, and 9.1. Dolby surround sound tests, Atmos trailers for home theater.
Yeah.
Tons of, yeah, there's definitely, this is apparently not new, because it's, the 5.1 is 4 years old. At least according to the videos that I'm seeing.
Yeah, I was just looking at my phone, like title, and I saw the 360 thing, and there was a Reddit thing from 2019.
Yeah.
That was comparing Atmos to the 360 audio one.
Yeah, so it looks like it's clearly an audio format that is somewhat new, definitely has competitors. It probably has a market push right now because Apple's picked it up.
It's so much significantly larger than these other companies. Even Spotify, Apple could be like, "You guys want to buy Spotify tomorrow? Sure." And then they wouldn't even notice. They'd be like, "Hey, did we buy Spotify yesterday? I don't remember."
I think I had a dream. I don't know. I had a couple of drinks last night.
I had $1 in this pocket, but I don't see it anymore.
And I have the Spotify. All these people following me from Spotify. This is weird. So yeah, they could. So it'll be interesting to. I like and I don't like format wars. It's it gets annoying if you pick the wrong one. But the nice thing is this is all streaming, so it's not like
you can pick the wrong one.
Library of I got everything in Dolby Atmos, and then they stop it and it's like, crap, this is all useless.
Yeah, what am I gonna do with all this? You can't even play it anywhere. Yeah.
But that'll be like, just switch it over to the 3D thing. All right, click, and that's all. Everything's over in that form. So and that might drastically change the competitive nature of formats now. If you can get it on everything.
I'm still skeptical that it even maybe there's a few tracks or albums or whatever where you're like, this was really great. But will most of them be like that? I don't know. Now, if you were planning for it, if you, created an album with that in mind, I think that would be amazing, right? You'd have all kinds of opportunities. And you could probably make it sound great, especially if you knew kind of how it worked. And if you had a plugin or something, it was like, here, put everything where you want it to be in the Dolby Atmos thing. And then you could go that route. But if it's just after the fact, after you've mixed and mastered it, a stereo track, I just have a really hard time believing it will sound very good.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. I think that's the end all be all right there. Plus artist involvement.
Yeah.
So those are the two big things. Make it sound good and make sure the artist is involved. You know, it's like, because one of the tracks was like Tom Petty, and I'm like, well, he's dead. This guy's dead. This guy's dead. This guy's dead. It's like, clearly they own the rights to the intellectual property or whatever. And they're just going like, well, these are hits, so let's do these to kind of like show off what the thing can do.
Would be interesting. We didn't talk about this, but it's sort of on the same line, which is, you know, a lot of people have sold their song catalogs this past year. I think Bob Dylan was the most famous one, right?
He
sold it for like $500 million or something.
Damn.
And so anyway, it's like, well, whoever bought that probably wants to make some money on it. You know, like, was it already signed up for all? You're like, yes, you can put it in 360, and yes, you can put it in this commercials, and yes, you can put, you know, like, that's kind of the anticipation. And like, I don't think there's Bob Dylan songs and commercials and stuff that there wasn't up to that point. But the anticipation is that it'll start being in movies and commercials, and they're going to try to make some money off of it because they've spent a lot of money on it.
$500 million for his song.
It was something like that. I can't remember what the number was. It was a lot.
Yeah, because he's still making music at 80 something years old. So he's got a humongous catalog, and he's got a lot of clout to the name. Duh.
I mean, he might as well. I was like, more power to him, because it was between 300 and 400 million to Universal. And then like other people like Neil Young, Stevie Nicks, other people sold theirs too, but nothing like his price tag.
Oh yeah, clearly.
You know, he's practically like if Paul McCartney sold his, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not quite that level, but same kind of deal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like what was it? Michael Jackson bought all the rights to the Beatles stuff, and
right.
He
got it for a deal, right?
Yeah, and he'd listen to Paul McCartney's advice. It's like, yeah, I'd buy the entire catalog. He's like, okay, and he did. He's like, well, not you. It's like, don't buy my stuff. What the hell? So, it's funny. Anyways, I think we've tapped this subject out for the evening to an extent.
I'll sell my catalog. Go to Bandcamp.
Hey, you know that you never know. It's all a matter of getting that one thing to come together, that one soundtrack, that whichever, you know, in your career to be set.
My price is 300 million. We could talk about 200 million, but
yeah, well, we'll negotiate down to maybe 200, somewhere in there. We'll see.
100 million could probably work.
All right, everybody. Thanks for.
We'll see you.
We'll let you know how the listening goes.
Yeah. Peace.
Peace.